Alright, our next episode of Star Trek The Next Generation is called The Loss. It's episode number 84, and it originally aired on December 21st, 1990. It was written by Hilary J. Bader, Alan J. Adler, and Vanessa Green, from a story by Hilary J. Badler, and directed by Chip Chalmers. And the episode actually begins at the end of a counseling session when Troi begins experiencing a headache. Now, after the patient leaves, the pain increases until Troi blacks out. Now, meanwhile, Worf and Data detect several anomalies ahead of the ship, and Picard stops to determine if the anomalies actually exist or are simply ghost images in the sensors. And they find no malfunction in the sensors, so Picard orders a resumption of their previous course. Now, the Enterprise jolts violently as it tries to go to warp, and minor injuries litter the ship. So Picard orders all stop, and at the same time, Troi calls Dr. Crusher for help. Now, something starts dragging the ship through space, and in the staff meeting that follows, Troi reveals that she can no longer sense emotions. Now, after examining her, Crusher finds a section of unresponsive cells in her brain, and Troi is dealing with this loss, while Data and LaForge discover that a colony of two-dimensional beings are surrounding the Enterprise. Now, their wake has trapped a ship, and the lack of her empathic sense drives Troi to resign as ship's counselor. As she rages through all the emotions associated with grief, Troi lashes out at her friends, and a new threat to the Enterprise appears in the meantime. The colony of beings is dragging the ship toward a cosmic string, and it's an entity only the width of a proton, but with the gravitational forces of a black hole. Now, if the Enterprise impacts the string, it will be destroyed. So after exhausting all technical means, Picard appeals to Troi for help. He wants her to help Data understand the psychology of the creatures, and Troi surmises that the colony is moving toward the string in the same way a moth heads for a flame. Now, when the Enterprise generates subspace vibrations to simulate another string for the colony to pursue, the colony changes course and the Enterprise breaks free. Now, immediately when this happens, Troi's empathic sense returns, and the powerful emotions of the colony had temporarily overloaded her senses, and that's why it happened. And that is the end of the episode. Now, Rick Berman actually really pushed for this episode quite a bit. It was considered kind of the blind person episode of TNG, but really it's even more than that. Rick Berman basically said that this was not only that, but it's an episode where somebody has an ability that nobody else has, and then when they lose that, everybody else is kind of like, so what? You know, we're able to function with this, and Troi is experiencing what it's like for the very first time. So nobody can completely identify what she's going through, but yet she's going through all these stages of grief at the same time. Now, Michael Piller also says that this basic idea was being pitched every season where Troi loses her empathic abilities, and they were just trying to find a good place and a proper story for it. And they felt like fourth season was a good place to start, and they decided to meld it with the B story, which has the two-dimensional creatures which catches the Enterprise in its field. So they decided to move those together, and Troi, at first she doesn't even want to help with this investigation because she's so overwhelmed with the loss of her empathic powers that she resigns as counselor and doesn't want to be a part of the crew anymore. But finally Picard is able to talk Troi into it after getting a little counsel from Guinan. So Guinan kind of points out in 10 Forward that it's not just her empathic powers that made her a good counselor. She's also able to deduce things just through her natural ability to reason and through psychology, which she was trained for. So Troi is able to help with that, and then eventually she does get her empathic powers back. Now, there was a little talk early on that perhaps Troi would lose her powers and never gain them back. But for the most part, most of the writing staff kind of felt like that they wanted her to get it back in the end, and it was really just the journey of her dealing with these things is what they wanted to focus on, rather than it being a permanent loss. And that makes a lot of sense. And one of the scenes that I really thought was important was actually in this picture here, where at first Troi is even resisting getting any comfort from the other crew members, even Will Riker. And finally Will comes in and she opens up to him a little bit, and he uses the line, "We're on equal footing now," when Riker realizes for the first time that Troi kind of had the advantage of eavesdropping on other people's emotions and what they were thinking before. And nobody else had the ability to even do that. So you always kind of look at Troi in previous episodes as kind of the moral center mother hen type. But really looking at it from this perspective, it's interesting because now you can see that Troi had a certain advantage and was able to kind of nose her way into people's thoughts and private lives in a way that nobody else could. So I think Troi has a special appreciation that she gains after losing this ability, and maybe she's a little bit less nosy from here on out. It really doesn't talk about that from other future episodes, but I think Troi definitely learns a few things through this episode. So not one of my absolute favorites of the season, but a good one nonetheless. An episode. For fourth season, my opinion is always that even the B episodes aren't top caliber, are so great. I think from seasons 3 through 6 really are my favorites here. So I think this is definitely an example of that. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment below on your thoughts. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks.